check out this. Wait, hey, down here. Ah, I see what's happening here. You're expecting another high-riding SUV, weren't you? Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you because this is not an SUV. Because this is an incredibly rare beast. It's a hatchback in an SUV world. Not just any hatchback, mind you, this is the Peugeot 308 GT Premium Hatch. And I've had the pleasure of its company for the last 3 months. Now, I'm going to give you the lowdown on my time with this car, and that includes the good and the bad. And who knows, maybe I might even convince you that perhaps you'll be better off with something like this as opposed to that compact SUV you've been eyeing off. Be honest, would you have known what this car was if you couldn't see the badge? I mean, granted, you probably know what it is already because the make and model is in the title of the video and you've clicked the video, so you probably already know what it is. I understand that. But I'll tell you what, this car has had a lot of people stumped. In my 3 months with the car, a lot of people have kind of admired it in a way of like, ooh, what is it? And then other people have just admired the beauty of its design. And I tell you what, I am one of those people. You see, I don't know if you know this, but it's a scientific fact that the Peugeot 308 is the most beautiful small car available in Australia right now. I will fight you if you disagree with me. Especially when you consider its predecessor, which was a really good car, but it was just a super conservative design. It's just as appealing inside. There are interesting angles and levels, hard and soft touch materials, and a cool, dark vibe. The quilted leather Nappa seats are something to behold, gorgeous to look at and in keeping with the rest of the visuals in the cabin. The big talking point inside in terms of design is the so-called iCockpit. Peugeot says the setup ensures a greater connection between the driver and the machine. It has a tiny lower set steering wheel allowing the 3D digital instrument cluster to peek up over the top of the wheel, but more on this in the practicality section. Most small hatchbacks have crept up in price quite a bit over the last few years, everything from the Toyota Corolla and Mazda 3 to the Volkswagen Golf and Honda Civic. They're all much more expensive than they were a few years ago, and it's the same story with the 308. So Peugeot's positioning is quite interesting. They're a little bit more high-end than Hyundai, for example, but not quite as premium as Mercedes-Benz. So think Volkswagen positioning. But one thing you won't find with the 308 range is a stripped-out entry-level model with manual air conditioning and cloth seats. No such model exists. The GT Premium hatch sits in the middle of the 308 lineup, above the 308 GT hatch and below the recently launched GT Sport plug-in hybrid. Oh, and there's also a wagon version of the GT Premium if you need more cargo space. The price of this grade is $48,990 before on-road costs. That's more than a Volkswagen Golf R-Line and Honda Civic VTI LX, but less than a Cupra Leon VZ, and more prestige fare like the BMW 118i. But the good news is it's packed with features, like seriously packed. It has a panoramic sunroof, 10-speaker audio system, leather heated front seats with massage function, wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, wireless phone charging, keyless entry and start, and a genuine proximity key that actually works. There are a lot of other features that you can find on my written review at carsguide.com.au, and it's so well equipped that there are no options fitted. In fact, the only other options are premium paint that costs between $690 to $1,050 depending on the colour. But the stunning olivine green that is fitted to our press car was standard. So everyone bangs on about the practicality of SUVs, but aside from that higher ride height, I don't really see how much more practical they are. Case in point, the Peugeot 308 hatchback interior. I think this is quite practical. It's got a lot of storage spaces. So in the center here, it's a really deep central bin. You've got a USB-C port and a little kind of nook underneath where you can hide, items to be a bit more secure. A little place for your keys and for cords and stuff like that. Here, two decent sized cup holders that have the little bits in them so, smaller cups don't fly around. It's also got that nice little secure top lid. The phone charger up here, which is good, but honestly, I haven't driven a car that has a phone charger that works all the time. They're always really patchy, and it's the same story here with the 308. Particularly when it's connected to Apple CarPlay, if you're trying to charge, it gets a bit fuzzy. More storage here, another USB-C, 12-volt charger, and a really decent-sized glove box as well. Not to mention, of course, you can fit big bottles in the door cavities there, as well as some other smaller items. The beauty of Peugeot's iCockpit setup is that everything falls to hand really, really easily. The screen is slightly angled towards you. I love that it's got toggle buttons underneath. Yay for buttons. Even the steering wheel controls are just right there. The stalks are just there. Everything is just so close, and I love that. I'm such a big fan of this tiny, tiny steering wheel and the fact that the digital instrument cluster pops up above it. I know a lot of people don't like this setup, but it's just worked really well for me, and I'm 6 foot tall and I'm still managing to kind of work it out quite well. That digital instrument cluster, 10 inches, it's 3D. You can turn that off, which I thought I would when I first got the car, but I've actually really vibed on it and I think it's really, really clever. And also 10 inches is the multimedia setup over there. Now, you can customize that screen to whatever setup you want. And my partner did that, and I got a bit lost because I couldn't work out what I was doing. However, a little bit of familiarization and you do kind of get to know this screen pretty well. It is possibly a little bit on the overcomplicated side, but the graphics are fabulous. I love the bright green graphics. It matches the green stitching throughout the car as well. And just under that screen is another little quick links screen. So you've got a button for Apple CarPlay, the phone, the auto stop start and all that kind of thing. And I think that is brilliant. You don't have to go, traipsing through all of these menus to find how to turn off the stop start. It's just right there. So great job, Peugeot, on that front. As I've said, I do love the look of these seats, but they're also incredibly comfortable. There's so much bolstering on the sides. Not too much, you don't feel kind of hemmed in like you can with some of these cars. Beautifully done, and it also comes with a standard massage function. And can I tell you, often car massages are a bit crummy. This one is really good. I used it on a road trip recently and I was quite surprised how much better my back felt afterwards. I wasn't driving very fast, by the way, so I wasn't getting distracted by the massage, but it's a good one. So I'm sitting here in the second row of the Peugeot 308 GT Premium hatch, and I'm sitting behind my 6 foot tall driving position. Now, I'm not lounging out because it is a small hatchback, but they've sculpted out the backs of the front seats. So there's actually quite a bit of knee room, heaps of toe room, which again is increasingly rare these days. And I'm not uncomfortable in any way, shape or form. This is completely fine. Again, I've had friends, full-grown men do this on a road trip and there were no complaints whatsoever. Also headroom. The panoramic sunroof has absolutely no impact on headroom. I've got plenty of headroom in this hatchback and there's actually an inch or two between me and the headlining, which is great. These beautiful seats continue in the back, not quite as bolstered, but that makes sense given it's the rear seats. You've got the ISOFIX points on the outboard seats. You've got map pockets in front of you. 2 more USB-C ports back here, another little nook, knee-level air vents, and a bit less storage in the doors than you get up the front, but still enough for a decent-sized bottle. It is a bit dark back here, but I don't mind that so much, and yeah, I think overall it's a nicely done second row. So, the Peugeot 308 GT Premium can swallow 384 litres with all the seats in place and 1295 litres when you put those seats down. Now, it's actually a little bit less than the GT hatch for reasons that I'm not entirely sure of, but it does miss out on a spare wheel. You just get a tyre repair kit, unfortunately, so that could impact your decision if you live in regional or rural areas, for example. It does have a couple of little nooks. It's actually quite a decent sized boot. I did a road trip in this car and had to fit 4 of us and all of our stuff, including a lot of luggage and a lot of booze and a lot of food on our way back, and we managed quite well. So there's that practicality thing again. The least appealing thing about the Peugeot 308's engine is opening the bonnet. There's a whole hidden latch situation and it's quite fiddly and annoying. I guess it's some sort of French quirk. I've always believed that bigger isn't always better, mostly when I'm talking about engines. But it's funny, if you think about it, 10 to 15 years ago, Australians would have scoffed at a 3-cylinder engine, but Now they're in everything from Toyota hot hatches to BMWs and Mercedes-Benz models. And it's also in the 308. And you know what? It's a ripper. The plucky little 1.2 litre 3-pot engine delivers 96 kilowatts of power and 230 newton meters of torque. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually pretty peppy. It's a front-wheel drive hatch and it changes gears via an 8-speed torque converter automatic transmission. The 308 can cover the 0 to 100 kilometers an hour sprint in 9.7 seconds, but in reality it feels quicker. Peugeot claims that the 308 sips just 5.3 litres per 100 kilometres on the combined cycle. And around town, you can probably get single-digit figures. We certainly did. However, clearly we engaged in some enthusiastic driving during my last month with the 308 because we calculated a figure of 11.7 litres over close to 300 kilometres of driving. The trip computer said 11.3 litres, so that's not far off the car's figure. It also emits 120 grams per kilometre of CO2. So I've talked about the Peugeot iCockpit a little bit and sitting in the car now, ready for a drive, and it's such a great driving position. You feel quite low to the ground. For me, that kind of helps add more of a connection with the road. You know, my steering wheel, the tiny steering wheel, is in the perfect spot for me. I just love this thing, and I think the word cockpit is very apt for this setup. It's very well done. So let's go for a little bit of a drive, shall we? Even reversing. So the reversing camera in this thing is really good. You've got the surround view monitor, and you've got a regular one. The display is really crisp and great. And I must say, parking in this thing is a breeze, like in kind of city areas and even like tight spots. My apartment building has a very tight parking situation, and most of my other press cars have kind of been bigger SUVs lately, and they're really annoying to park, and this thing isn't. You won't have any problems on that front, let me tell you. So I don't know if you can hear that, but the indicator sound is quite appealing. I know that's a bit of a weird thing to say, but I find, you know, that a lot of cars have really sharp, annoying indicator sounds, but this and some of the other alerts, like I think it's blind spot monitor alert and that kind of thing, they're really cute noises in the Peugeot. It's just little things like that make a difference. The 3-cylinder engine in the 308 has bags of character, and it's got a really, really fun engine note, and it's the kind of engine note you only get from a 3-cylinder engine. Probably my biggest gripe with this car overall is the turbo lag from takeoff. It is significant. Now, I've had this car for 3 months. I'm used to it now. I know how this car works, but if you're getting in it for the first time, you will notice a bit of a beat there with the lag. The 8-speed torque converter automatic transmission in the 308 is a terrific unit. It acts a bit like a dual clutch or even a manual. So you can really notice the change in gears, and again, I just think that really adds to the character of the car, particularly with the engine note combined. Steering is sharp as a tack in this thing as well. It's quite light, the helm, but it's really direct, and you can really point and shoot with this car. One of my favourite things about the 308 is how it handles. I've done a couple of road trips in this car and found some quite windy, twisty roads, and that's where this car shines. It is just dynamically really hard to beat. And that's against things like the Golf and other cars like the Civic as well, all really, really good cars that handle beautifully. I think this is better than them. It's just so engaging and quite planted as well. I've never had a problem with grip. The traction control setup is done really, really well. It's just an absolute joy to drive. And it's one of those cars that literally every time I've gotten in this car, even if it's just to go down to the shops, at some point it's brought a smile to my face every time I'm behind the wheel. And you just can't say that about a lot of cars these days. Another surprising positive of the drive experience in the 308 is ride quality. I think a lot of European makes tend on the kind of firmer side when it comes to ride because they're going for like dynamic prowess, and I get that. But I think Peugeot's struck quite a nice balance here because it soaks up a lot of bumps and potholes and corrugations and the like, way more than I thought it would. And the 18-inch wheels, the tyre package as well, it's just a really good combination. So, you know, the suspension does well at kind of balancing the chassis, but it also, they've done really well with ensuring you're just not getting those jarring bumps and that kind of thing that you do often in European cars. Peugeot's also done a really good job with the cabin insulation. You can certainly hear the thrum of the 3-cylinder engine, as I've mentioned, but honestly, road noise is generally kept out, and I haven't noticed too much in the way of wind noise as well, so it's just a nicely hushed cabin as well. Peugeot has packed the 308 GT Premium with a solid safety features list. It comes standard with autonomous emergency braking with low-light pedestrian and cyclist detection, rear-cross traffic alert, long-range blind spot detection, adaptive cruise control with stop-and-go function, and a lot more. However, crash safety watchdog ANCAP decided that wasn't enough, and it awarded the 308 a 4-star rating. Check the written review at carsguide.com.au for a detailed breakdown of safety gear. Peugeot covers the 308 with its 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty. Buyers also benefit from 5 years of roadside assistance and a 5-year service price promise program. The service schedule is every 15,000 kilometres or 12 months, whichever comes first, and servicing plan pricing ranges from $1,000 for 3 years to $1,800 over 5 years. Look, I understand a $49,000 hatchback isn't going to be for everyone. I appreciate that. But for anyone shopping in this price bracket that might think a small SUV is going to be more practical, I say lies. The Peugeot 308's got plenty of space inside and a lot of practicality, and it's not missing anything when it comes to spec. It just doesn't have that high ride height of an SUV, and you know what? A lot of people don't need that. I think the 308 has more flair and character than any other small car on the market in Australia right now. I'm actually going to find it very hard handing the keys back to this car because I haven't been this charmed or engaged by a car in a very, very long time. Make no mistake, Peugeot's back, baby. For more on the Peugeot 308, head to carsguide.com.au.